Plato or Why by the poet Wisława Szymborska. For unclear reasons, under unknown circumstances, ideal beings cease to be satisfied. It could have gone forever, hewn from darkness, forged from light, and sleepy gardens above the world. Why on earth did it start seeking thrills in the bad company of matter? What use could it have for imitators, inept, ill-starred, lacking all prospects for eternity? Wisdom limping, with a thorn stuck in its heel, harmony derailed by roiling waters, beauty holding unappealing entrails, and good, why the shadow when you didn't have one before? There must have been some reason, however slight, but even the naked truth, busy ransacking the earth's wardrobe, won't betray it. Not to mention Plato, those appalling poets, litter scattered by the breeze from under statues, scraps from that great silence up on high.
Wow.
Yes, and frankly,
I like that.
don't understand half of that. But if you're actually interested, I don't think it's in this book, but it's the same Polish author, Wisława Szymborska, pretty famous Polish poet, or poet in general, I should say.
Yeah, that's one you have to listen to kind of like several times.
Okay, the person speaking in the background, before I bring him on, I gotta say.
Wait a second. What are we doing? What are we doing here?
So this is currently episode 220 of SG2 on space, Expositions on philosophy. Particularly today, we're going to cover Plato from Plato's philosophy. Most people probably know who that is, but the disembodied voice in the background. Let me bring him on board. Oh, hi.
Hey, Shen.
Hello. Good to see you, Leonard.
How's it hanging?
It's hanging, I suppose.
Thanks for stopping by.
Yes, likewise. Glad that we're continuing the trend in talking about philosophy. Of course, we're going back 2 millennia now, at least.
Yeah, we're kind of like expanding our repertoire, as it were. I guess. I hope people don't mind.
Before I continue, I would like to say thank you for our supporters, Kyle Baker, Sam Welsh, John Graves, for your kindly donations. And for anybody who wants to continue to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/SG2OnSpace. I will leave the ticker on the bottom running. And of course, like, subscribe, and share. So I'm just saying that at the beginning. I will say it again at the end.
Subscribe, especially. I think that's good for us.
Subscribe will be very good. All right. With all that said, let us talk about Plato. I mean, I think most people, even the ones who are not necessarily reading any kind of philosophy, have heard of Plato. But just for, let's start from the basics, just for the heck of it.
Well, let's see. Let's talk about. Let's set the stage with what?
Yeah, set the stage properly. It may not start with Plato. Maybe we'll
okay. So most people know the Greek civilization of the 4th and 5th century BC. That they made great contributions to philosophy and critical reasoning, and shaped by probably a unique combination of factors that fostered the intellectual growth. And it had to do with, well, actually, it's something of a mystery why Greece, and not, I don't know, someplace else. And some people have studied this, and they think that it has to do with the geography, the fragmentation. The geography of Greece is fragmented, so there's numerous city-states that were all competing with each other, and they developed a intellectual curiosity and inquiry, profound interest in understanding the world through reason, and moving away from the mythological explanations. And you can see this in some of the works from that era. In particular, I think we wanted to talk about Plato. So so Plato was one of these Greek philosophers. He's very famous. He was born around, it's not clear. He was born in the 5th century BC, probably 427 or 428 BC, in the city-state of Athens. And he's considered really a pivotal figure in Western culture. He came from a very aristocratic family.
Hmm.
They had a history. They're believed to have had a history in politics and intellectual pursuits. So his early life was shaped by the turbulent politics of that time. There were wars and politicians, and they believed in democracy above everything else. And he was a student of the other philosopher that everyone knows about, Socrates. And he also Plato later became a mentor of Aristotle. So he's like in that legacy. So Plato founded an academy in Athens, and one of the earliest institutions of higher learning
It was
in
literally
Western.
called the Academy, right?
It was they just called it the academy, and I guess the word academy is Greek, but I don't know. I don't know what it means in Greek. Maybe some others might be able to post something to help us out with that. But he taught, and so his motivations, he claimed to be driven by a quest for truth, justice,
Mhm.
ideal forms of government, and human conduct. Conduct, in other words, how are you supposed to behave, right, in the world? What is, in terms of justice and um, all those good things. So his works often reflect, particularly this work called The Republic. He had a lot of books that survive. Mostly they were preserved because they served we went through a kind of a great filter in classical literature and the things that we know about them, because the 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 Christian civilization and then
Mhm.
Islamic civilization selected the things that they liked to keep and discarded the things that they didn't. That's
Right.
I propose that's one of the reasons why it survived. But
Yeah.
his works reflect you. Yeah.
No, I was going to
Yeah.
say, and you're absolutely right. The books that were, there were many, many other Greek philosophers and writers and historians and whatnot, and many of their works did not survive nearly to the extent. So,
That's right, because Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle aspired to really non-Christian ideals. They were
mhm.
pagan, but they seem to have reflected a lot of the values that we hold from Christian. Well, I guess I can say Christian civilization. That's just a shorthand for our way of thinking. Really, they're sort of out of reach in a lot of ways because they talk about slavery
Mhm.
and and different things like that it's hard for us to understand them in a lot of respects. But Plato's works often reflect dissatisfaction with political corruption
Mhm.
and what he thought was moral decay that he observed in Athens. And central to that philosophy was this disillusionment, especially with democracy.
He was
Okay.
disillusioned. So, democracy in Greek times, what was that conception of?
Well, I mean, it was like we think of it today. Of course, they only had male, men who
Right.
voted, and only certain people were citizens, and there were a lot of people who were not citizens. But it was tens of thousands of people who voted for their leader and voted for issues,
So, it's
and
just a note that this was before Plato even arose on the scene, that there
that
was already
that
democracy
that's
where,
that's correct. And so Plato's idea was that this notion of democracy had kind of run amok.
Mhm.
So today you hear our politicians always, our politicians are always talking about, well, it's democratic, or we want to be democracy. We're all about democracy, but they haven't really examined the work, examined the ideal. But I don't actually really want to. I don't want to be that provocative, to talk about it like that.
Let's go
His,
back and talk about what Plato was saying about his time.
so so Plato's mentor was Socrates.
Socrates.
Right.
Yes.
Socrates was a classical Greek philosopher, and he's credited really with as a founder of Western philosophy.
Hmm.
So he was known, and everybody knows this. It's a Socratic method, right? Which means you're known for questioning. So you just keep asking questions, and you ask questions that are believed to really, already answered. And I know people like this who will answer things with just stating a fact. And Socrates was known for asking questions, about basic things, pretending to be very unwise. He said, "I don't know anything," right? And
Really,
so,
the fact that you're questioning it, he already has an answer. He's just like
well, right. He would allow you to answer the question, right? And so he discovers that people they hadn't examined questions very much, and this really perturbed the people who were running Athens of that time. And so he was criminally charged with corrupting the youth. It's a bizarre charge. I mean, I still don't really understand it. It's a bizarre charge of corrupting the youth
right,
and being an atheist, being impious to the gods.
right,
And
right. Despite there being many enlightened philosophers, so to speak, or there were the prevailing religion at that point was still the traditional Greek pantheon, right?
well, I presume so. Yes. So they thought that he was it was really a trumped up charge, I
Right, right,
believe.
right.
It was just,
Understand.
you know,
How
you
did
know,
Plato factor into this?
well, Plato observed this. Plato was a young man, and he observed this. He observed Socrates being uh, persecuted
Mhm.
and behaving in a way that was where he didn't disgrace himself. With he confronted the charges in a trial. And the jury was something. I think the jury was hundreds of people, and they
Mhm.
decided to vote on whether he was guilty or innocent. And the guilty verdict meant he had to be executed. But the the verdict was close. It was a close verdict. So it's so bizarre about this injustice of this. And so Plato was deeply affected by that,
Mhm.
and he thought that it left a profound impact on Plato. He saw the event as a manifestation of the flaws of Athenian democracy. So witnessing this unjust condemnation of Socrates. And there are contemporary accounts of his death where they give him poison. I guess people know this. They give him poison, and there's
Yeah.
a very minute by minute, hour by hour description of how he finally died from the poison. He had the opportunity to escape, but he didn't. So he was in his 70s at the age. This is Socrates was in his 70s
Right,
at
right.
the age of this trial and execution. So Plato's experience with this led him to question the foundations of Athenian society and the whole notion of justice. And then he formulated he formulated an answer to it in this famous book, which I've studied a lot. I mean, I've read it a long time in the past, and it's called
Just for the audience's record, what can you remind us what the famous book is?
it's called The Republic.
Literally, the Republic.
The Republic, and I don't remember. I think it has 10 chapters or 10 books inside of the book.
The manuscripts. Does the original manuscript still exist? No,
Oh
probably.
no, I don't think anything actually. You mean actually written down? I don't.
Yeah.
I think there's hardly any actual text that exists. There's no paintings. They talked about paintings like you would put on the wall from that era. But there are no paintings of.
For anyone who's actually interested, this page here that I just put up, I think it has at least a synopsis of it. But in any case, please continue.
So the story of the Republic, the story in there, it's really suffused with a lot of symbolism, even from the very page, the first page of the book. He talks about it's told from the standpoint of Socrates and his friend Glaucon, and they start out by saying, I went down to Piraeus. Piraeus was the port that's near Athens. And so even the notion of going down, where he goes down to a place where all the people are, and that Athens is like up in the clouds, as it were. So all of these kind of things, and they went down there to see a parade and a festival, and do things with do some religious sacraments having to do with the gods. And they're captured, basically, in a sense, captured by the house of Cephalus, which was this elderly man, and he had a lot of friends with him, and so the rest of the story is really a dialogue between this group who is captured. They capture Socrates and Glaucon and take them to the house of Cephalus, and then they have a discourse, right? So, and among the things that they talk about are what is justice, and the notion of an ideal state. And there's a lot of mythological kinds of things and symbolic things that are going on in there. So anyway, Plato's in the Republic, Plato outlines the ideal state in response to these in response to the exploration of justice and what is the good, what you should pursue. In fact, they have a character in there named Thrasymachus, and he thinks he's like a Machiavellian. He thinks that, well, the best kind of rule, or the best kind of ideal, is somebody who just looks out for themselves. It's a very selfish kind of character. So he says justice is what delivers the best to the strongest, right? And so it's pretty interesting from that point of view. Plato kind of analyzes these things, and then he proposes that the best kind of state, the ideal state, is structured in three classes. Right. There are producers. These are like the craftsmen who are down at the bottom, people, farmers, merchants, who provide all the material needs of society. And then there's a guardian class. And I think that once you reach a certain age, then you become eligible. Like, I don't remember the exact age, but I think once you achieve the age of 40, you get to decide whether you're a guardian or a producer, and then when you become 50, you
just
can decide.
This is all in his theoretical framework, right?
That's right. That's right. It's considered the ideal. So there's producers. There's a group of warrior class to protect the state and enforce rulers' decisions. They're called the guardians. And then there's the rulers, and they are considered philosopher kings. And so he has this very elaborate, almost I don't know, dystopian sort of society where all the children are taken away from their parents and raised in a creche, or raised separately so that they're indoctrinated with the right form of ideology to be either a guardian or a ruler or a philosopher king. And he thought that you needed to be a philosopher. And then the notion of what is a philosopher. So Plato, only who had achieved a deep understanding of what he called the forms. Mm-hmm. So form, you're probably familiar with the forms, and these are like eternal.
Well, explain what the forms are.
So Plato thought that there was eternal and unchanging ideals that exist beyond the physical world. So, for example, circle. Okay, a circle.
So a perfect circle is a form, but obviously in this real world, there are no
perfect circles, but there is some kind of metaphysical notion of a circle or a triangle. And I think there is something to that. Although I'm not gonna appeal to a metaphysical realm or some kind of woo-woo kind of description of that, but we do know what a circle is, so mathematically and so forth. But he also thought that morality was like that. So
he believed in absolute sort of morality.
Yes. So ethics, that there were ideal sorts of ethical forms and that was really a hope, and that's very famous, that he believed in that. But that's more difficult to approach, I think. So the philosopher king, the king of this ruling class of this ideal society, would have reached a level of enlightenment to govern justly and wisely. So that's what he thought. So so do you have any questions about that? What do the viewers at home think?
I mean, I don't know. Anybody watching, you can pose a question.
So the way
the philosopher king, that's an interesting way to put it.
That's how he expressed it. So democracy didn't really have anything to do with this.
Okay.
And he thought that was because he just thought that democracy leads to
who's the one who decides, like, okay, you are now a philosopher king? I mean, can anybody just say, well, I've reached the stage of understanding I'm a philosopher king?
I think the other philosopher kings would judge a cohort of guardians who would achieve the age of 50 or so, and then they would select among them, and one of the most important features of the Republic is this thing called the allegory of the cave, which a lot of people are familiar with. And so this was the way that Plato tried to distinguish between someone who was enlightened and who wasn't. Most of us are not enlightened. Most of us are in Plato's cave.
Where are you, Leonard? I'm just going to straight up ask, are you in Plato's cave?
No, I'm not. No.
You're.
I don't. A lot of times.
So
in contemporary.
You just said a lot of people are enlightened. They're in Plato's
right.
cave.
If
you're not there, you are enlightened.
I think people who have studied Plato.
Okay.
You're
out of Plato's cave. Got it.
All right. You try to crawl out of Plato's cave. Another way of reflecting it would be, we sometimes say people are in a bubble. You self-select the things that you pick the things that you want to believe, and you discard the things you don't want to believe, and you put yourself into a bubble.
I'm going to say, isn't that what religion is, sort of, in many ways?
Yes. Well, Plato did have something to say about that also. He thought that organized religion, he didn't have the religion that we know about, but the religion of his day, he thought it was pretty crappy. I mean, he cites the story of the Iliad and the Odyssey, where Odysseus in the Odyssey goes through travels down into the underworld, and he meets Achilles. Now, Achilles was one of the great heroes of the Trojan War.
Just to stop right here, is that still in the Republic, or is that one of his other works?
No, this is in the Republic where he's talking about this. Okay, all right. Mm-hmm. And so he confronts. This is criticism of religion, because the ideal structure of government, they completely changed the religion, right? He wants to discard certain negative aspects of it, because Odysseus confronts the dead, the ghost of Achilles in the underworld, and Achilles is miserable. It's like, I would rather be I can't remember exactly what he said, but he would rather be like the lowliest person on earth than to be here, where it's than to be here in the underworld. So the underworld is depicted as just really a very negative, not exactly the hell that we think about, where you're sent to be punished.
Right.
Although there was an aspect of that, but it was just you're sort of suspended, and you don't have any, you're dead. I mean, basically being dead is pretty sucky, right? And so Plato thought that was he wanted to create another mythology for the the producers, the producer class of people to believe in. And actually, I guess you could regard it as a kind of what he would think as a noble lie. You just make up something that would be more inspirational. He wanted to get rid of all those negative things having to do with the Greek religion.
Hmm.
So, but
So
in the
he wasn't looking to create any sort of new religion. It's just like instead people
no,
will be following this philosophy that he's written
no,
about. Right.
he thought that the existing religion of the Greeks of that day was
Right.
was did not inspire people to be good citizens, to be philosophical. He thought that the god. I presume that he thought that the gods were, corrupt,
Yeah.
and had they exhibited all of the negative things that humans have. Like
Uh,
Zeus would come down, and he was like a sex maniac. He would come down and rape everything.
I mean, just animals and various any kind of human
Yeah,
being. I mean, it didn't matter
right.
who you were.
Yeah.
You got a good chance to, get his unwanted attention, I guess.
And so Plato wanted people to understand this
Yeah.
phenomenon where you are in a bubble, right? You only understand what the rulers want you to understand. And so he introduced this thing called the allegory of the cave, which
Hmm.
is very famous.
Right.
So it's
Right.
presented in this, I think, the seventh book of the Republic, and it's a powerful illustration of his views on perception, how you acquire knowledge, and then becoming what he thought was enlightened. So here's how the allegory of the cave proceeds. He
Hmm.
says, you imagine a group of prisoners who have been chained inside a dark cave from birth. Their heads and interestingly, their legs and necks are somehow chained up, so they can only look at the back of the wall. Seems like their hands are free. Okay, so they can move their hands around. So if you can imagine that, right? Their heads are fixed in place, so they can only see the wall in front of them. Behind them, there's a light. It's a fire that's burning, and between the fire and the prisoners is a raised walkway. And then there's like these malignant characters that are carrying shadow puppets across. Like they would hold up a jar and they would walk across, or they'd hold up a cat and they'd walk across. So the prisoners only see the shadows of the objects that are being presented to them by these characters on the walkway. They only see the shadows. And so because the prisoners have been in this situation their entire lives in the imagination of Plato, they believe the shadows are the only reality. So I guess you can figure where we're going with this. And they're unaware that the objects in the fire behind them. So the shadows represent the prisoner's perception of reality based on sensory experience. And Plato argues that all of that is an illusion, and that our own world is like that. So there was a movie that was made about, I don't know, is it 20 years ago now, called The Matrix?
Yeah. I mean, I think that was a very popular movie about what. But did we ever? Okay. Yes. Continue. I mean, it's like. I guess should I just spoil it? It doesn't matter. You're going to talk about it anyway.
What are we going to spoil? What?
I mean, everybody's seen The Matrix, right? So just go on.
I guess we do have to be careful about that.
I mean, I assume everybody
Maybe,
did, but go
maybe
on.
I shouldn't spoil, but
Yeah.
the Matrix. I mean, you very quickly come to the realization that when you're watching the movie, that the Matrix, because it's, the scene opens up like that, that the character Neo
Mhm.
is one of the prisoners chained in Plato's cave. But as it's depicted by Hollywood and projected, it's not literally Plato's cave, but you can see the influence or the notion being reflected there. So Plato argued that all of our realities are projected on the back of a cave. So sometimes you'll hear people say, I'm sorry, I'm in Plato's cave. Or maybe you don't hear people say that, but I've said that sometimes. So we're all prisoners in Plato's cave, right? And so we only experience the projections on the back of the wall. And it's in our modern times, it's characterized by a big rectangular video screen that we turn on and watch, and we get our news and we get our information and we watch our entertainment from it. So that would be the modern experience of Plato's cave. So, for example, and I'll just give a prosaic, maybe a benign exhibition of that. Last week, okay, this is February 2nd,
February
2025.
2nd, 2025.
Yeah. So to the people watching 10,000 years in the future, this is shortly after a famous fire in California that you could look up on your equivalent of Google, right? And you probably know the truth about that. We don't really know the truth about it because we only understand it from the standpoint of the pictures that are presented to us on our internet and on our rectangular screen, which we used to call that television. So that's. Now, I'm not saying anything about the truth or falsehood of whatever was happening. It's just an example that's in the contemporary mind right now. Mm-hmm. So you think you know what happened, right? You think you know what actually happened in California with these big fires. And I can think of all kinds of other examples of that. You didn't really have hardly any of us had any personal experience with it. Maybe 100,000 or 200,000 people in California had a personal experience, breathed the smoke and that kind of, and are able to apprehend what actually happened, right? But we can't because we're presented with someone's version of that projected on the back of a cave.
I mean, are you saying like we're seeing the pictures and the videos on television?
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. Or your phone or your computer, basically some kind of screen.
Right? I'm sure our fans in 10,000 years from now, appreciate what I'm saying. So, but
that's always the case, though. If you're not yourself experiencing,
always the case. Yeah, that's right.
Just hearing it secondhand or watching it secondhand.
Yeah, and someone is selecting the images that you want to watch. So they're on that causeway that's behind the prisoners and holding up all of the. See, I actually have a picture of it. Let me share screen. Let me see if I can do this. I'm going to share the screen. I think that's good. If I can get this. Yeah, just a minute. I know. I know it's kind of.
Sorry, drop my mic for a second.
Yeah.
Have you figured it out?
Yeah, I just want to know. Okay. All right. I always have trouble with this. So, share screen. Let's see. Yeah, just bear with me. Here it is.
I don't see anything on
share.
All right, I'm adding it to the stage, whatever you're sharing.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Oh my God, I love it. Nice picture.
Yeah. So I embedded it in some of my notes. I should have put it in a PowerPoint, but that's okay. So you see, here's the prisoners. See the prisoners down here? And this is how I visualize it. And this is their reality.
Oh my God. So they see those shapes on the walls and they think that's reality.
They believe that that's the reality. And this is Fox News, CNN. I mean, these are the malignant characters that are projecting images. Okay. And here's the light, and this is what they think is the sun. And so Plato goes into this story about.
Oh, so the fire, they think it's the sun when it's not even the sun. That's not even.
Yeah, that's not even the sun. Right. And so this is depicting one of the prisoners being extracted from the cave and dragged out. And see, he doesn't want to come out, because he's afraid. He's already seen, the TV channels and so forth. And then he's, and then he sees this, and it's like, I don't understand what's going on. He doesn't want to see it. And he comes out and then I think this is at a different point where he sees the reality, the real world up above. So this is how a person becomes a philosopher, right?
The
So
philosopher has to get out of this cave and see true reality.
yeah, so right. I don't know if you can see my pointer or not. Can you see my
Move your mouse over.
mouse? I did. I moved my mouse.
Yeah, I
'Cause I
see
was
it.
trying.
I don't
Okay,
know
because I was trying to point at things. Okay, good. All right.
Okay,
And,
so
yeah. So
how is this vision of the ideal state related to this allegory of the cave?
well, this is all of us down here.
Okay.
This is all of the people who influence us for whatever reason. And then one of the guardians, this is a fable of someone being pulled up out and understanding that all of this is how they form their opinions about the world. And I really firmly
How do
believe this.
we like? Okay, so to get out of this cave, how do you even get there? I mean, I guess
Well,
this is part of the journey to enlightenment,
well, that would be what Plato would say would be the enlightenment. So
right?
yeah,
Um,
I'm gonna stop.
so I mean, you want to keep
Yeah,
this
I'm
image?
gonna
Whatever.
no, I'm gonna stop sharing it now. So, but
Okay. I guess
um,
my other point is like, um, how do you know what is real? Like, do you? I mean, let me put it this way. Me, like any of us, we can't possibly experience everything in this world. I mean, we can't be everywhere at once at every single time.
right,
That'd be like
yeah,
God. I mean, like a God. So
right.
how can you ever know
Well,
what
I
everything
think
is real?
I think Plato would ask you to be aware of this limitation. All right. So a lot of times in our discourse and um, how we live our lives and move forward, we just accept things that are being told to us, and we don't ask these questions. So, so that really connecting Plato's ideal state to the allegory of the cave. So it's like, well, Plato's vision of the ideal state is intricately connected to this allegory.
Okay.
In both of these, he's sort of emphasizing the importance of enlightenment and the role. So you need to understand this limitation. Okay, and we did some work on um, on um, the psychiatrist Carl Jung,
Yes, we did.
and Carl Jung also talked about something called the shadow and having to do with shadow work, and that
Mhm.
so all of us have this limitation, right? And you want to, as if you appreciate that, if you appreciate that limitation in your own ability to understand, then you will start to um, you'll have a better life in a certain respect. So in today's world, so anyway, so let me try to provoke this
The
conversation.
philosopher king, by the way, is like the freed prisoner in the cave.
Yes, he's going to have the wisdom to understand these things. So that I'm not. By the way, I'm not saying that Plato's really is the ideal state. I don't think it's consistent with. I don't
Right.
think it's compatible with how we could actually run the world. But
Right.
in today's world, many of us are like the prisoners in Plato's cave, and we perceive the shadows on the wall as the only reality. And I'll just leave it to our audience to decide what shadows they're responding to. So I do believe in that. I do believe that we're just
Are our
responding.
beliefs and values truly reflective of deeper truth, or are they mere shadows cast by a limited perception of reality?
In my opinion, we are only what we have been shaped to be. So
We're all in
Plato,
the cave. But you just said you were not in the cave. You might
I'm
be.
not. I'm not. But
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
not even. I'm not even from this planet. Okay, so I take my guidance from the mothership. Thank you. Okay, so we often hold on to contemporary values and beliefs without questioning the validity or considering alternative perspectives, and so that's the main thing. It's like if you okay, so let's talk about politics. Okay, and I'm just gonna say I'm not gonna say Democrat or Republican in America. I'm gonna say Yankee and
By the way, for people
You know,
10,000 years in the future, for some reason, this country has America in the early 21st century has two major political parties.
yeah, we don't really know why, and we don't even know what they stand for. So, um, so because I don't want to come down on one side or another. But what I'm just saying is,
Mhm.
you have to ask yourself, okay, so it's split down the middle. Tens of millions of people believe one thing, and so we have a democracy, like we're voting, right? We're voting, and in fact, we're voting to condemn people, maybe, like Socrates. Socrates was unjustly punished because he kind of didn't do anything wrong other than ask questions, right? So you have to the thing that has to get to you is, how is it that you believe one thing and then tens of millions of people believe something else,
But
right?
all throughout human history, that has always
That's right. Right. And that's what Plato observed
it's like you can
2,500
fervently
years ago.
believe you like it's always hasn't I mean I find that always been the case, right? Like you and your group of people believe something or this set of things extremely strongly, and then
Uh-huh.
other people don't believe it at all or have the contrary view.
And you're both watching the same you're both watching the same shadows on the back of the cave, or maybe you're not, maybe you're in a different cave, or maybe anyway.
I guess my point here then is like if you put it this way, say a modern political system or whatever, sociological society is where different people say, millions of people are watching these shadows, and then these other people are also in the cave watching these other shadows. So there's different, people holding signs up.
You can be
But
watching the same movie and you come to completely different
right.
conclusion.
Let me put it this way. We're all watching shadows, regardless of what your beliefs are. I think that's a key
I
point. So,
I guess so. I guess that's what Plato would say. But it is possible to break out.
because if you do look at, I mean, I don't want to get political, and I don't plan to, but my point
Me
is,
either.
like, if say you are like on one political side or the other, I mean, you're already in a sense defining your reality by the media you consume. Most likely, you don't go look at the other side at all, or if you do, you're just gonna condemn it and like
Yeah, you shield your eyes from it, and you
right,
go, oh, or you find some other explanation for that profound fact that millions and millions of people
right.
disagree with you,
So
right?
So the point here is that like you're selectively choosing your reality. So in that sense, or your perception of reality. So like you are defined by these shadows, I suppose, or
And
rather you're saying, yeah,
we're defined by by the shadows that are presented to us.
right.
So
I mean, to be, I guess, I mean, I don't know if maybe you did answer my question earlier when I said like one human can't possibly be everywhere at the same time to experience everything and understand what is actually happening. Like,
and
very
and
easily.
and yeah, actually, I'm even open to the possibility that doesn't help, even, you know, that you're still shaped by the images that you have the opportunity to
I
experience.
guess my point here, I think maybe you already answered this. Maybe it is just to question, like whatever
To
somebody tells
question,
you is to see
right?
like what is that real? Like what is the
Yes,
motivation here? Yeah.
and also be very suspicious when the questioning is attacked. In other words, if you just ask a question,
Hmm.
you just ask a question, right? And the answer is, oh, everybody knows the answer to that, or oh, you wouldn't be asking that question if you weren't like a bad person,
Right, right.
right?
I mean,
Just
like for myself, I would like to think of myself as not completely in the cave, just be like, I would like to. I mean, I don't know,
I
but
understand.
it's just, yeah, like anything that is stated as if it's a fact without any kind of uh, any sort of evidence, really,
Uh
that's
huh.
presentable. is suspicious. So, and I think a lot of the especially in this for people 10,000 years in the future, hopefully your media is better. But these
Yeah,
days,
I'm sure it is. Yes, I'm sure they're all out of the cave by now.
it's just a lot of. It seems like a lot of sensationalism in the sense that it's less fact and more like, oh, what kind of powerful emotion could it evoke in you as a viewer, you know?
Correct.
So,
Right.
and that's, I mean, I don't know, like, and so like the basis for our modern democracy, at least in this country, seems to be mostly swayed by emotions. I'm just gonna put it that
Right.
way.
Right. And I didn't really want to go into the founding of the American democracy or anything like that. Our our audience 10,000 years from now really isn't that interested in that anyway. So,
We're like ancient
but you
history.
know, but yeah, Plato's allegory of the cave challenges us to seek enlightenment and question assumptions.
Mhm.
Yeah, our beliefs, our core beliefs, our values, are they really reflective of the deeper truths that we can access if we were to quote get out of the cave?
I'm gonna ask you
So,
something else here. So he wrote all this in a political and societal environment at that time that he was dissatisfied with um, the state of being of Athens at that time. Did anybody? I guess did this work, the Republic, and like have profound impacts, right? Even though they may not have adopted it at that time.
I think so. I think that this did very much influence the Western philosophy. Not at the time of not at the time of the classical era in Greece, but at the time when the Western world became um, became more Christian. So and I'm not a Christian apologist or anything like that, but there have been philosophers who have looked into, or philosophers and historians who've looked into the fusion of Athenian reason and logic and the kind of what I guess mystical things coming from the East, really from the Jewish influence on Western philosophy. And so sometimes one of the Christian philosophers in the Roman period would ask, what does Athens have to do with Jerusalem? And so that's a question that has been discussed, but that would be for another day, I think. I just wanted to. Well, no, go on. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, just briefly reading from Wikipedia, I mean, throughout the ages, there's been many legacies. I mean, influences like in the Middle Ages, Islamic philosophers, at least who
Averroes.
Averroes, yeah, advanced an authoritarian ideal following following his model of a philosophy.
Yes.
Thomas More, centuries later, who people may know as an English philosopher and statesman, wrote Utopia, which was kind of similar in some respects to Plato's Republic. And then later, the German philosopher Hegel, George Hegel. So I don't know. Also talked about
and then
it.
whoever wrote the story about the Matrix. But the bottom line is, so the idea is
the themes have been continuing on throughout history.
That's right.
Works have had profound impacts in.
So Plato wanted us to question our beliefs, strive for a deeper understanding of truth and justice, confront our assumptions, right? And that gets to the core of science also, right? Because remember we talked about Karl Popper,
right?
And the idea of you need to be faithful to a scientific principle. You need to think of experiments or arguments that will disprove your hypothesis and test it from that standpoint.
How is science related to this? I mean, this podcast is mainly supposed to be about science, but we've been talking about philosophy and I don't know, societal stuff for a while. I guess you're relating it to now by just what you're saying, the fact of the truth. Like science is supposed to discover the truth, right? Which is getting out of the cave.
I guess I'm losing.
You're losing your voice.
Yeah. I bet somebody from 10,000 years in the future has struck back. So striving for the deeper understanding of truth. I sound like Robert Kennedy.
Oh my gosh.
It's live. Hey, he came back. Okay.
Okay, I hope
So
you're okay. I'm laughing about it, but I hope you're fine. Go on.
so we want to strive for deeper understanding of truth and justice and the right way of living. Maybe we better wrap it up.
Okay. I mean that's yeah, I will say that's a good statement. So all right. We're done talking for now since Leonard has lost his voice.
Don't you want to talk about you want to talk about anything else? Usually you have something to talk about.
Dang, I haven't talked about.
We haven't talked about, our favorite topic in a long time.
Why have I stopped talking about it?
I don't know. I think you're just in a bad mood and you're
Hey,
unhappy about me or something. I don't know.
that's that can't be right. How can I don't think that's the reality. You're making up stories again.
Yes, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I think you are. I think I haven't really talked about it much because I don't know, haven't looked into it lately. It's not to say that I won't look into it in the future. It's just that I haven't really. But let me see this. Okay, let's see how realistic this is. I'm gonna share my screen. Okay, so jumping to one of my favorite topics is obviously, the most important thing. I'm kidding.
Woo woo.
The extraterrestrial existences, which I know Leonard does not believe in at all, but that's okay.
Right.
I think that may be coming out of the cave. Like you're in this cave where that's not real. Or
well, no, I mean, no, actually, it's very appropriate. I mean, because I know what I want to believe. I want to believe that there are aliens. I want to believe that there are thousands of civilizations, and that the law of large numbers guarantees that. But just
hold on,
I came out of the cave.
UFO captured on helicopter thermal imaging. Footage from a heat-seeking helicopter camera shows a spherical object. It was filmed while officers were flying 1,000 foot over the Bristol Channel. They don't know what it is and have taken to Twitter to ask for suggestions. Police have been baffled after a UFO appeared on one of their cameras. Confused police said the mystery object was flying against.
Okay, I'm gonna ignore that terrible voice because that doesn't even make any sense at the bottom. So this is I mean, you can just see like a weird spherical object. Apparently,
yeah.
By some
well, I mean, it's certainly a pretty good shadow on the on Plato's cave.
I mean, like, what could this be, right? I mean,
what could it be?
Like, look at that. What could it be?
I don't know. We talked about a UFO sighting where it was. Do you remember the squid? Or jellyfish. Jellyfish.
Yeah. Did that turn out to be like a fake one?
I don't know. I don't know, but I remember it's over a year ago. We talked about the jellyfish alien thing. I think in Afghanistan there was an airplane, and there was this thing, and I pointed out at that time, if I remember, I said, if we did
in Iraq,
in Iraq, if we didn't have the narrative to suggest that it was a jellyfish, and if we didn't have this narrative about it dipping into the water, I think, for several minutes and then coming back out, we would not have come to that conclusion just based upon the shadow that's being projected on the back of Plato's cave. So I view that. I view a lot of this UFO and
for those of you who don't, people who haven't seen it, this one was actually really very strange. Gosh, now it just crashed, I think. Or it's gonna like, it's a jellyfish one that was observed in Afghanistan, not Afghanistan, Iraq. I'm
Afghanistan or
sorry.
Iraq, yeah.
And it was like floating over
Yeah.
like various things, and it didn't seem to make
And like I tried to set aside the narrative that we were hearing, and I said, well, what is this? It's like, it looks to me, it just looked like a tangle of ropes that was being suspended from a cord that was attached to another helicopter or to the helicopter just outside. And that's all it looked like to me. It didn't, and that would be my effort to get out of Plato's cave and view what I actually saw. So I don't think anybody
that thing
can
down
do that,
here.
Brother Shen.
Yeah, you see that?
No. Yeah. But we were able to see it, projected better than that. Anyway, this is an example of a shadow that's projected on Plato's cave. And we're prisoners.
I mean, it's like this is a jellyfish unidentified area phenomenon seen October 2018, flying over U.S. Joint Operations Base in Iraq. So, who knows, right? I mean,
who knows? The shadow knows. Plato.
I mean, my perspective, whether it's popular or not, I think there's just a bunch of aliens visiting us. We're like this weird world of humans that are just kind of nutty, and we're like entertainment for these aliens.
Okay. So. Anyway.
All right.
I guess we will return in a week or so with another engaging topic. And I
want to stick with what? I don't know if we want to stick with the philosophy theme. We're going to talk about some other aspects of science and technology. Maybe we will.
I'm open to talking about anything. As you may know.
You're the one who suggested talking about Plato this time in Republic.
Well, because I was, we did do Karl Popper. We
right.
And so getting to the fundamentals of what science is and what it means to know and that sort of thing. And it's just fun stuff to talk
to. One of the first philosophers in at least in Western philosophy is Plato, talking about more fundamentally what is reality.
And the last philosopher was Wittgenstein, who said it's all language games, all word games. But that's for another time. So
but I don't agree with that. But
I don't agree with it either. I think Karl Popper was right that there actually are philosophical questions.
There is indeed. I mean, there's. I think philosophy is still very much alive. And although I don't, admittedly, we talk about these people that are already gone, so to speak. I mean, at least not alive in the mortal sense. But philosophy as a discipline is still very much alive today. And I think, so.
Right. Well, we'll think of something.
We are going to draw this to a close for now. Thank you for everyone for watching this show, SG2 on Space. I would like to say it's the only weekly space show. Although I will say, for the most part, it is, at least in Houston. So you can support the show on patreon.com/SG2 on Space. And even more importantly, please, if you watch this and you like it, subscribe to it and share it.
Tell your friends, leave a comment.
And leave a comment.
Yeah, like if we made any mistakes or if we had any questions, because I think we do make mistakes sometimes. So
yes,
anyway.
Just because Leonard is out of the cave does not mean he's a perfect human.
Well.
Oh wait, he may not be human to start with. I'm sorry. That may have been an insult for you. To be called a human if you're not one.
Okay.
You can
All right.
All right.
Thanks. Oh, I just wanted to say thanks for stopping by.
All right. Thanks for stopping by.
Bye.
With all
Namaste,
that,
shalom, and
it has to be that long. Yeah.